To follow me because there's a pattern that starts developing here. Jesus said this. These are 6 things you have to do in the last days. Number 3, pray that you enter not into temptation. Matthew chapter 26, verse 41. Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. Now listen to this carefully. I wrote these notes down. You never are to pray, Lord, don't let me be tempted, because as long as you're in a body, you'll be tempted. Notice how he said it. Pray that you enter not into. The word enter here is like a door that is opened that you willingly walk into. So Jesus is saying this, and this is good, Pastor Mark. Jesus is saying this. He's saying, pray that you do not go into the doors of opportunity that are open for you to be tempted. Because a lot of times, you have to admit this, we bring testings on ourselves. A lot of times, maybe actions or words or deeds, that it's not necessarily, I have a message called It Ain't the Devil, It's You. Sometimes it's not the enemy. Sometimes it's things we have done. And so it's interesting, he didn't say, pray that you won't be tempted, because Jesus knew as long as you live in a human body, you're going to be tempted. But he said, pray that you enter not into temptation. And in the Lord's Prayer, it says, lead us not into temptation. I'll say it this way, don't lead us, God, into a door. Don't allow us to be led into a door that's open for us. Shut the door. You know, Jesus said, I have the key of David. I can open a door and I can close a door. And so this is very interesting, all right? Now, you can pray and not be watching, and you can watch, really, and not be praying. Watching, when Jesus said watch and pray, watch this now. Watching guards your mind, but prayer guards your spirit. This is real important. Watching around me, keeping alert, guards my mind from the doors that are there. But when I begin to pray, I'm protecting and guarding my spirit. Now, why would Jesus say, pray in the last days, watch and pray that you don't enter into the door of temptation? Because in Luke's gospel, he said, remember Lot's wife. Lot was on the way out. His wife was on the way on the edge of a great deliverance and a great escape from judgment, and she stopped and turned back and was destroyed. And so Jesus wants us to know that in the last days, there may be some people that get right on the edge of the return of the Lord, and they're turning back. And this is what he does not want you to do. Number 4, I love this verse. Let your loins be girt about and your lights burning. Luke 12 and verse 35. Now, these lamps, or these lights, were actually oil lamps. There's 2 types of oil lamps. We'll show you a picture here, or a drawing. One of them is a small lamp that fits in the hand. You put olive oil in it, you put the wick in it, you light it. And the oil is what gives the ability for the light to occur. The other is on a long pole that has a big lamp on top of it. Also, you have to have olive oil for both of these for them to work back in the time of Christ. Now, the little ones were put in homes, but the larger ones were used in processions at night, like in the parable of the 10 virgins, when the call came and the bridegroom came and met the bride, and they go away at night. The virgins would have had oil on long poles. That's the kind they would have used, not the ones that you would have put in your hand and carried around, all right? So he says your loins must be girded and your lamps must be burning. What does it mean to have your loins girded? Back in that day, all men wore robes, and they had a belt attached to it to hold it together. What they would do, they would reach to the back of the garment, pull it all the way up in the front, and tuck it into the front of their belt. And it exposed their body right from the middle of their legs, their knees, and down. Why did they do it? So that they would not trip. If they were running, if they had to make haste to make speed, you can't run into robes. So that's where they would just pick up the garment, tuck it in the belt. That's called girding up your loins in the Old Testament. So Jesus says there's 2 things you've got to do. Now watch this. Gird up your loins, meaning tuck the bottom of the robe into your belt. Here's the reason why, so you won't trip. So let's just do it this way. Jesus is saying, gird up your loins, meaning don't trip up in the last days. Don't trip up. It's going to be easy to stumble and easy to trip up in the last days. Don't trip up, and one of the ways you do it is by keeping light around you so you won't stumble over something. There's things in the Bible called stumbling blocks, and a stumbling block is something that does what it says and makes you stumble. So in other words, walk in the light. Don't hide your light in the bushel. Walk in the light, gird up your loins so that you won't trip and fall. Number 5, this is Matthew 25. There was a man who owned a lot of property, and he gave 3 of his servants 3 different amount of money to invest. He came back to give an account of those servants. 2 of those men had doubled their money, and the owner said, hey, this is great. One of them did this. Then he who had received 1 talent, and talent, by the way, was silver. It wasn't a talent like an ability to play the piano. It was money. came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you're not sown, gathering where you're not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid my talent, your talent, into the ground. Look there, you have what is yours. Then in Matthew 25:27, you should have therefore put my money to the exchange, and then at my coming I should have received mine with usury, or received it with interest. Now please follow me carefully in this one. In the story of the parable, 3 men. 2 men did the right thing, took the Lord's money and did the right thing with it. But a third man was, get the point, afraid. And because he was afraid, he hid the Lord's money. Now notice it wasn't his money to hide. It belonged to the owner and to the master. And I want to say something to you, and I want everybody to hear me here, because I really believe this is a quick word from the Lord for you. And that is that in that time in which we're living in, there's a lot of people that are fearful about economic things, and even about tithing or giving or supporting a church or supporting ministry, because they're fearful. And what people are doing is they're taking what belongs to God and they're putting it away. And they're taking what belongs to the Lord and they're hiding it. And you cannot have not only blessing now, but you cannot have blessing in the future at the return of the Lord if you're going to hide that which belongs to God. Let me just tell you something. We just completed the OCI facility, which was the building itself was an $18 million building. And Pastor Mark is with me here on the set. And Mark, it was totally, completely ludicrous for us to build during a recession when they talked about people not having jobs and a high unemployment rate. But guess what happened? We did what God told us to do. When we did what God told us to do, God took care of it. So you can't take God's things and begin to hide it in these last days. God says, take what I've given you and use it for my kingdom to bring forth fruit. All right, number 6, pray to be accounted worthy to escape the tribulation. I love these verses. Luke 21:36. Watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Romans 2:3. And you think this, old man, that you judge them which do such things and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? 1 Thessalonians 5:3, when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction shall come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So there's 2 groups here that's being addressed. There is a group that can escape what's coming, and there's another group that cannot escape what's coming. And the difference between these 2 groups, in Romans chapter 2, if you'll read it, is these 2 groups, that one group is totally wholly following the Lord, and the other group is paying no attention to spiritual things and walking totally, completely in the flesh, walking in an unrepentant spirit. And one does not escape the judgment or tribulation that's coming, and the other can escape the tribulation or the judgment that's coming. I don't know what people who think we go through the whole tribulation, I don't know what they do with this verse. Watch you therefore, pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things. Look at the context. It's the last days, and stand before the Son of Man. The time before the coming of the Lord. To escape in Greek means to flee out of. It's the same word used. How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation? Hebrews chapter 2:3. These things, if you go back to the context of the verse, refers to earthquakes, pestilence, wars, and all the signs in the heaven. But notice what he said. You will escape those things which are coming, tribulation events, and you'll be able to stand before the Son of Man. What does it mean to stand before the Son of Man? That's what Paul called the bema, or the judgment seat of Christ, and that is found in Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. That's when it begins to take place, which is about middle of the 7-year tribulation period on earth. We'll be in heaven at the judgment. Now, let me sum up something very important that I want to share with you. Before my father, Fred Stone, passed away, I was at the house with him and Mom. They live here. Mama lives here in Cleveland this day. And my dad was weeping and crying. He was about just actually a few months from his passing. And he said, I want you to tell the people something, Perry, every opportunity you get. And I've been saying this more and more lately. He said, in the last days, it's going to be, he said, the Lord showed me this. He said, in the last days, there's going to be some of the weirdest battles and the weirdest temptations come against people that they've ever experienced in their life. People are going to have thoughts they never had in their entire Christian ministry, Christian walk. He said they're going to have pressure come against them, and they're going to say, where in the world did that come from? And the idea of the enemy is to pressure a person to pull them out of their assignment or to pull them out of God's will. He said, I want you to tell people that this came from the Lord, that people have to learn to excessively pray excessively, intently, and pray excessively in the Holy Spirit. Because the more they pray in the Spirit, the Holy Spirit will give them the power to overcome the things that the enemy's trying to bring in their mind. He'll give them the energy and the life that they need to walk every day and literally overcome and rise above those things. And I want to give you that word today, that the enemy is on a rampage. And we are, I think if you know the Bible, we're in the last days. I don't know how long it's going to be. That could be months, that could be years, because one day with the Lord is 1,000 years. Okay? We're in the last days. And so these 6 things I've shared with you today are very important that you follow them. They're things that Jesus wants us to know and he told us about. Now, I have one of the most unique books I think I've ever written.